There's just going to be more disclosure about who's getting paid and where it's coming from and what to expect in a real estate transaction.
I'm not going to get into all of the back end things of how it affects agents because this podcast is about how it affects you as a consumer. And how this affects you as a consumer is, as a seller, you want to be able to get as many buyers in to purchase your home as possible.
Selling real estate is a function of marketing and a function of logistics. Historically, in this country, sellers have offered commission to the buyer's agent, and it's actually not true.
NAR has reached a settlement, and the changes have officially taken effect as of August 17th. What changes are they? Well, we're going to get into that.
Let's talk about, so we're going to switch the theme. It's going to be a medical podcast today.
Welcome back to Millennia Up, though.
Says unqualified medical opinions, and I have many.
Cool.
Yeah. So what are we talking about today?
So now this is coming out. You will have heard a million times that NAR has reached a settlement, and the changes have officially taken effect as of August 17th. What changes are they? Well, we're going to get into that. It's going to be a short episode. We're not going to belabor it. We're not going to bitch and complain and moan about it because honestly, fortunately in Pennsylvania, and we're also, disclaimer, talking about how it affects Pennsylvania specifically. Unfortunately for Pennsylvania, we've pretty much always had these practices anyway, so very little is actually changing. And we're here to just debunk and get rid of all of the negative headlines and the false headlines and dramatized headlines that have been out there and just give you the actual facts of what is now happening. Actually happening. Yes.
So yeah, if you guys want to see agents complain and piss and moan about this, then you can go to TikTok or your favorite realtor on Instagram. But that's not what we're going to do. Or just keep scrolling long enough on YouTube. So basically, why don't we talk about what happened and and we're going to focus on what this means for the real estate consumer. The back end of like how our process is going to change with documents and everything like that in terms of like what agents are going to be sending to each other. I think that is, if you're interested about that, you should hire us because then we'll talk to you about it. But for the purpose of brevity and just kind of breaking this down into the red meat, we're just going to talk about what it means to you.
Okay. So first we're going to get into how it affects buyers, then we will get into how it affects sellers because it does affect everybody and practice as a whole. So
does it?
Well, as in it doesn't affect one party versus the other.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to interrupt you just to make sure you're on your toes.
Shocker. Okay.
Yeah.
So first, he says we're not going to talk about docs. I'm talking about one singular doc in this, and it is the biggest change that is going to be made for buyers. And this is not a trap made by the agents trying to tell you to sign, commit into something. It is legitimate that now, in order to go see houses, you do have to sign some sort of acknowledgement of how the agent will be compensated. So that will likely take form of a buyer's agency agreement. That's what we will typically use. Some brokerages may use some sort of curated agreement stating that there is some sort of compensation agreement, but generally speaking, it's going to be the buyer's agency agreement that will need to be signed before you go in to see any houses. So that's the biggest change for buyers.
Yes.
Anything to add?
No.
Okay. Period.
Letting you off the hook. Nice work.
Thanks. And how this has changed from the past is typically you see a house, you want to go see it. It would say, okay, sure, let's go see it. Now you just have to have an agreement signed before you go in. That is very, very important because the premise of this lawsuit as a whole was centered around compensation, and that's where you're going to see these changes. So we're not going to get wildly into opinions, what we think will happen, what we think will not happen. But that's about it for that. Buyers, you need to sign an agreement before you go in. This will mean, and the reason why this hasn't changed is because this is the way that at least we have always done practice. We have a buyer consultation. We speak to our clients. We explain to them historically and traditionally the commissions are paid for by the sellers to incentivize the buyers to purchase their property. So that may still be the case. That has not changed. But if the seller does not offer the buyer's agent commission, then you as a buyer will pay your buyer's agent commission, period.
Yes.
And that is it.
That is it.
Would you like to get into how this affects sellers?
No, you're doing a great job.
What, you got vocal problems today?
No.
Did you not warm up this morning? You didn't do
No, I'm fully caffeinated, fully hydrated, and I'm ready to rock and roll, but you're doing a great job.
I'm fully caffeinated. I'm not necessarily hydrated.
Yeah.
When am I ever? Okay, how this will affect sellers. It doesn't have to. It really doesn't have to. You have always had a choice to offer a buyer's agent's commission or not. So if you choose to, I think it is wise. Oops, I said I wasn't doing opinions, but these are facts. It will attract a larger pool of people because think like if you're a seller, chances are you're probably also a buyer or you will be at some point. Buyers are very out of pocket with a lot of their money and all in to be able to cover their closing costs and their down payments to purchase your home. So to incentivize them to be able to purchase it, you're covering the agent's commission to bring more agents through to see your house. Now, agents are not allowed to decide which houses to show and not show based off compensation. And this is kind of where the suit came from in the first place, which is why the commissions have been taken off of the MLS, the multiple listing service. So
can you explain what the MLS is for our layman?
Yes, I sure can. The MLS is the hub, the database, if you will, of where all agents put the listings for homes. And that is what disperses it out to all of the Zillows and Redfins and Realtor.coms of the universe. So they put it in there, and that is how you get to go Zillow surfing. So I'm not going to get into all of the back end things of how it affects agents because this podcast is about how it affects you as a consumer. And how this affects you as a consumer is, as a seller, you want to be able to get as many buyers in to purchase your home as possible. And you may think, but why would I offer a buyer's agent a commission when they can pay their buyer's agent? Sure, they could, but they may now have to offer less on your home because they need to budget their commission to their agent. So if you ultimately want more money in your pocket, factually, it may make more sense to just offer the buyer's agent commission.
Yes.
Do you have any opinion? Well, we're trying not to stay away from opinions.
We're staying away from opinions, Jen.
Do you have anything to add?
Just the red meat, Jen.
This is the red meat. So it really is as simple as
I will chime in.
Okay.
Selling real estate is there's a function of marketing and a function of logistics. Historically, in this country, sellers have offered commission to the buyer's agent, and it's actually not true. Basically, what they do is they pay a commission to their listing broker, and then they both agree through a listing agreement that the listing agent is able to share, usually 50% of that commission with the buyer agency or the buyer agent. And the reason they do that is because the buyer agent is bringing a well-qualified buyer to consummate settlement. So this lawsuit was about disclosing of commissions and I think really just making sure that the real estate consumer is fully aware of who's getting paid for what and where the money's all kind of flowing to. So Jen is absolutely correct. In Pennsylvania, this is going to be largely business as usual. Real estate commissions have always been negotiable. They still are. But you have to pay an agent, if you choose to hire one, a fee. They're just like every other industry of existence. There are best practices. We're not going to get into opinion or try to steer or tell anybody what they should and shouldn't do. We would do that on a case-by-case basis, depending on the client's wants and needs. That's on the listing side and on the buyer side. And in that consultation, we would make our opinion heard in terms of what we think would be best in order to consummate a sale, again, whether you're selling a house or trying to buy a house. So I think that, for the purposes of this episode, it is really just about breaking down the fact that there's just going to be more disclosure about who's getting paid and where it's coming from and what to expect in a real estate transaction. One of the big changes for us as realtors is that buyer agency agreements are now required. I have had clients in the past where I've had a handshake, but I've always gotten a buyer agency contract signed at some point. That is largely changing across the country. So even if you're listening to this outside of Pennsylvania, if your brokerage, and I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but if your brokerage is part of the new, the National Association of Realtors, which is the actual defendant in this legal case, you are required to have a buyer agency contract signed. And this is, but like I said, this is for our team and for most of Pennsylvania. This is business as usual. There are states out there that buyer agency contracts were very loosely applied, but we feel very strongly about establishing agency with our clients because that is the proper way to do business, and it also allows everyone to understand what is actually happening in a transaction.
It's also always been what has protected you as the client,
and it protects you and it protects us. So,
and by protect, I mean it shows if we have a buyer's agency agreement with you, it shows that we have a fiduciary service with you, which includes like full confidentiality. If you want to look up the definition of fiduciary, we will list it here.
What is that for? Fiduciary?
Fiduciary. Okay. We will have our lovely editor put the definition of that right here, and Seth give you the pronunciation.
Phonics is important, Jen.
Nah. As I said,
I'm in a weird mood today.
Yeah, he is. He was all flustered earlier and was like, "Do you want coffee?" Okay, I want coffee. I'm like, "You okay, bro?"
I'm fine.
Anyway. I'll just say, at least the ramblings at the end and not the beginning. We've gotten comments about how we ramble too much and don't get to the point, but at least we got to the point by now.
What are the instructions for the client? What do we want to tell people to sum this up?
Talk to your agent.
Yep.
If you're a buyer, sign buyer's agency agreement. Go see houses. Oh, that's what I was going to say.
Okay.
And I actually think it's important. Just to stress the point of how little of this has actually impacted Pennsylvania. I had my buyer's consultation last week with a couple of my friends. And one of my really big things, just my own personal practice, is I don't like when people are seeing the documents for the first time when I need them to sign it. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pages, and it can get overwhelming. And I like when people know what they're signing. So at the buyer consultation, I'll kind of break through the important pieces of everything, highlight through and show like, listen, I know this is 14 pages. This is what is actually like the stuff that you really need to know. And if you need some light reading in the end of the night, like feel free to go through the rest and it'll put you to sleep. But as I'm going through them, the docs had just been released. The new docs to this lawsuit being,
which by the way, there's like very minor changes.
Which is what I was going to say. This is the buyer's agency agreement.
Sorry, Jen.
So I'm going through this with them for the first time, and for myself for the first time, and told them, I said, this buyer's agency agreement isn't different. There's like maybe like a word that's different because of compliance, but the way that it is structured is exactly the same as it was before.
It's just paragraph 3.
Only different. And then the biggest differences are in the agreement of sale. And again, as you are working with an agent or us as an agent or whatever, we'll walk it through more in detail. But the biggest impact there is just about concessions. So like I told them, I said, plan A is leave it to me and the listing agent, and you guys aren't involved at all. There's a separate form for that, the cooperating broker compensation. Let us deal with that. If that is a no-go, that is when step 2 is going to take into play, and that's when we'll write in the agreement of sale. But that's going to be something that can be discussed on a one-on-one basis and one-off. So that being said, I think we can wrap it up. So those are the big facts. So it's buyers signing an agreement before going to see a house, sellers speaking with your agent to decide what is going to be the best course of action for you regarding compensation. Period. That's it.
And also, it's very important, no matter where you're listening to this, that you hire an agent who actually understands all this.
Yes.
Because there's going to be some agents who are just going to fly by this, and you should demand that your agent explains all this to you in detail and explains it twice, 3 times, so you have a full understanding. So then you get to the fun part, which is
maybe in a few different languages if they really want to floor you.
No, but if you want to sell your house, there's a lot to do with buying and selling a house, and getting these docs out of the way early. I'm actually kind of excited for it because then we don't have to worry about them. Expectations are set, and then we can focus on the money and the logistics and the moving and all that fun stuff.
Don't confuse yourself with any reels or shorts or whatever TikToks that come rolling up that say what you should and shouldn't do. And here's how to do it. Like, clickbait. Also, just talk to a professional one-on-one and say, here is my specific situation. What should I do? This is all too individualized. The only thing that has to happen by law is that buyers agents and buyers have to come to an agreement of what compensation will be made regardless. But but more so on the listing side, like it's too individualized. Just talk to somebody and don't just go into, well, I saw in my primary information source of TikTok that, all sellers should be doing this.
Yeah.
You should be talking to your agent and see what you should do.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about different markets. Different markets are going to dictate different practices. So, like I said, it depending all the way down to the day you want to move, to the, your timing, to finances, logistics, family, whatever. It's all kind of on a case by case basis. So we'll do a follow. Let's do a follow on this, like at the end of the year. To see
we'll be sitting down strung out on coffee, just like bags under our eyes. It's been 5 months.
It's been so much worse than we thought it was going to be.
No, it's going
to be fine. It's going to be fine.
We're going to be like, so not much has changed.
Yeah. So business as usual, guys. So any questions about us, you can find us offline. Also, can you like and subscribe, man? We're gonna do a big push for subscribes. You and our editor have some ideas on how to push, but we have done a great job of getting our podcast out to our sphere. But we would love to get our message out to the masses. And if you are so inclined, hit like and subscribe, or give us a rating, give us a little love out there.
And are we going to completely ignore the exciting news and the biggest change that we've made to our channel?
I was waiting for you to bring it up, Jen.
So we have officially started going to 2 episodes a week. So if you haven't gotten enough of us, you still won't.
You cannot escape us. And if you follow us on Instagram, it's even harder to escape us because we've got a lot of content out there.
And we're trying to get on TikTok. I have never felt more like an internet boomer. Like, this cannot be the same brain operating the internet that used to make my own Zanga and MySpace layouts and code them all myself. I don't know what is happening up here, but with TikTok, but it is. We're trying.
Jen is at that age where she's in denial, but
if TikToks came out last week, you can know that I figured it out.
Father time catches up with all of us.
All right. On that note, we'll catch you later. Bye.
Bye.